So how are you doing? Everything good? I hope everything's okay during this, difficult time.
Yeah, been busier than before, I would say. But being busy is never a bad thing in our side of the world here, so can't complain too much.
Right, right. Good. So congratulations on being awarded the Young Alumni Achievers Award, and good to see you again. I met you last time during the ceremony, but unfortunately, we're not able to do this in person on campus this time. So when was the last time you were on campus?
I think we came to campus for our 15th year. Yeah, maybe that was the last time I came, 2014. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, after I left campus, I was in PNG, so I came back as the specimen, for the placement office offers and stuff.
Right.
But then we moved to Singapore, so didn't have an occasion to come. And then for the 15th year event, we came back. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, so that's the last time I think I came.
Mm. So I think you probably have not seen a lot of the construction that's happening on campus because a lot of construction happening, a lot of new things coming up. We're coming up with the School of Public Policy and new academic block, new dorms, sports complex, and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff is happening, and we would, absolutely welcome you back. Hopefully, whenever things settle and you get some time, would love to have you back.
Definitely, I would love to hear. I mean, last time I came, I was just astounded by the shape that the new campus had taken. I think once we left, we didn't know that it was massive. But yeah, I'm sure a lot more has happened in the last 6 years.
Yeah. So what do you remember the most from back then? Like, what are your fondest memories from the campus?
It's a very deep question. I think most of all, it's the friendships. I mean, I was in D12, so the friends I made in D12, I mean, they are still friends for life. And then a lot of people, I mean, Section C in the first year, those are the things that are kind of stick with you, because I was the combos captain, so the section was important to just get everyone together. Most of my memories actually are outside of the classroom, with friends, ram parties, combos, rambhais. Uh, and then I guess, like I mentioned even the other day, some of the profs, I think more than their teaching, their personalities just left an indelible mark, And I mentioned Professor Jain and Professor Balki and Ravi C, the three that come to my mind, and then Indra, I mean, we used to call her Indra Ma for ERI. I mean, amazing personalities. I think they just taught you the power of simplicity, not only in thinking but also in living. So I would say, yeah, I mean, friendships and some of these life learnings that I've taken from campus.
Mm. So I think that's I talk to a lot of alums, and that's uh, one of the recurring themes. Like a lot of people take a lot out of. I mean, so IIMA is obviously known for academics and the in-class rigor and all that stuff, but there is a lot to it outside the classroom as well. And so that's a recurring theme. I keep hearing that from a lot of people, and I think that's perhaps one of the unseen um, you know uh, armors that IIMA arms you with, and that keeps you in good stead in the long term. Yeah. So I mean,
That's
what
very
does the
true. I think I would just like to add a couple of things. One is that I feel adversity, brings you together also. So it's a very intense environment and nothing to take away from inside the classroom. But I think we kind of take it for granted, right? That if you come to IMA, the academic rigor is there. But because it's an intense situation, you tend to also lean on people that much more. And people you've leaned on during your tough times, I think then they stay on with you forever. So maybe that's an additional aspect which kind of comes through more in IMA.
Hmm, yeah. So what does this recognition mean for you? This Young Alumni Achievers Award.
See, I guess one is the imposter syndrome. You ask and wonder whether you really deserve it because I mean, IMA, above you, below you, beside you, you're just surrounded by really smart, capable people. It's a very humbling experience, and I think one of the things I took away from IMA, which was different from what I had when I came in. When I came in, I was arrogant and brash, and I think when I went out, I was a lot more humble just by observing the brilliance around me. So now also, I think at every point in life, when you get an accolade or a success, I think I've learned to ascribe more to fortune than to my personal worth. I think a lot of things have to come together for such things to happen, and I'm sure there are far more deserving people. But one thing which I definitely see is that I guess within entrepreneurship, I don't know, there are a lot of people who won this for edtech or education before. And to me personally, I think it's not a validation as much as recognition of the fact that we need smart people to solve tough problems. And coming out of IMA, the natural course could be to start a business or become a business leader in a large company. But I guess if more people who are capable, as certified by IMA, who are more capable, can dedicate themselves to solving tough problems. I mean, education and schooling, especially, is a almost a century-old problem, not being solved. And all the data shows that learning outcomes in Indian schools is really poor. So if someone who is trying to work on that deeply entrenched problem gets recognized, I think there is a wider ramification of it to tell people that uh, there is of course intrinsic reward of getting satisfaction, but there's also external recognition if you try your hand at solving tough problems. So for me, that's the truly I would say elevating part of this.
Mm. And you've done, this has been quite a switch for you, as in from leading PNG businesses in Asia Pacific for 8 years to CEO of Zee Learning to co-founding Lead School. Um, so how has your overall journey been? When you look back at all the roles that you've taken, how has your journey been? How do you see it?
uh, I think so. First, let me start with PNG. I mean, PNG is a great company to work for. I think I would say it's a second university. I mean, whatever you miss at IMA, PNG teaches you in terms of thinking and interpersonal relationship and managing people and being ethical. All of that, I think, is deeply imbued in a person by PNG. I was, however, convinced, living outside of India and working in PNG, that that didn't seem to be my life goal. And I've shared the story about me, that coming from a small town, being a child of both parents who were teachers, I had seen education up close and personal, and experienced the gaps between small town India and large cities and metros firsthand. Right, so there was a burning desire, although initially it was subdued. But as you start to tick off your basic needs, you start to wonder, what's the meaning of life, and like, what are you here for? And I was like very clear that if that was a burning desire, I need to do something about it. uh, and that's why the move back to India, working at Zee Learn and then setting up Lead, has been a really fulfilling journey. And uh, I read somewhere, and I think the more we read about the principles of Ikigai or something, that if you are able to find the intersection of your greatest joy and the world's greatest need, I mean, that intersection, if you're able to get, then you'll be a fool to leave it. And my sense is I was fortunate enough to get it early. 8 years out of campus is not too late, and I was clear that I think solving the education problem is going to give me tremendous joy. I would do it even if no one pays me. And just the fact that we've been able to now build a business out of it is, I guess, a secondary benefit. But just the privilege of being able to solve this problem and being able to see that this problem can be solved at scale has been amazing. I mean, I consider myself truly fortunate to be able to do this.
Mm. And it's obviously clearly very obvious that you absolutely love what you're doing, and there's a deep sense of passion there, and that's why I think that's probably has reflected in Lead School over the last 3 years. Growing into one of India's fastest growing and most innovative and largest education companies. And the numbers are really staggering, because when you look at serving 3.2 lakh students, 10,000 teachers, and 800 schools, it's really something. And it's perhaps the only company in the country that publishes student achievement and teacher performance data. So what sets Lead School apart overall, and in education innovation in particular?
See, I guess two things I would say. One, I mean, if you think about Indian education, and I'm talking only about K-12, most of the core education happens in the school, or is supposed to happen in the school. And because it doesn't happen so well in schools, we have a secondary market of tuitions existing in India, right? My thesis has been that if schools do their job well, not as many students would take to tuitions, and we have an opportunity to give them their childhood back, because students go to school for 6.5 7 hours, and then they are at tuitions for another 3 hours. uh, Now, see, I guess the way we approach the problem is at the genesis of the difference. We never set out to create a big company. I think our problem statement was that why is it that learning outcomes are poor in affordable schools, and most of India goes to affordable schools, at least in the private sector. And if you are able to understand the root cause of it, which is what IIMA teaches you, right? If you have to solve a problem, you have to go to the root cause. If you are able to understand it and solve for it, then I think we have a chance to solve the problem at scale. So the initial 3 4 years of actually running our own school was instrumental in developing the solution, because unless you intimately understand the consumer need and the consumer problem, and Professor Jain used to always ask us, who's the consumer? uh, and and exactly, when you are sitting in that parent's house and seeing that this parent's aspiration is great quality English medium education, because he sees that as the ticket for his child to escape their current reality, right? So education is seen by them as this propulsive force which will get them to shift orbit. But when they send them to school, their aspirations are dashed, because the school is not able to deliver to that promise. And the reason is because at home, it is a vernacular medium home, semi-literate or 10th 12th pass. Aspiration is English medium. The teacher skill is poor. When you put these two together, there are 3 4 rungs in the ladder missing for the child to take that leap. And our job was to build those rungs, because if you build those rungs, the child will take those steps. But in our education system, those rungs are missing. And what we ended up doing was to figure out, how do you really teach English to non-English speakers or to non-native English speakers, right? Now, this is a problem which has been solved in other countries, but unfortunately in India, because of maybe the British legacy, we tend to teach English as a subject. And back in 2013, we realized that we have to teach English as a skill. Now, this fundamental decision led to a lot of second, third order benefits, which is that once the child became proficient in English, then they could learn math and science and social studies in that language. So we solved the learning challenge first, and then we realized that it is not enough to solve the learning challenge, because if you look at school, similar to IIMA, teaching learning in the classroom is one part, but the whole school ecosystem, the institutional mechanism is also important. Because if you just solve for the teaching learning, then the institution can reject it as a new organ. So you have to solve for the institution also. So we ended up developing a school management system, which we call the school academic operating system, to ensure that these practices are embedded. Now, these are all built inside out with a very deep understanding of what happens in a school. If I had been sitting in a Mumbai office and saying, how do we build an edtech business, I don't think I would have been able to do this. But those first 4 years of rolling up the sleeves, working with 14, 30, 50, 60 students. Today, I mean, you mentioned 3.2 lakhs. Today, we have 6 lakh. I mean, since the last time we spoke, we have now with working with 1,600 schools. That's about 6.4 lakh students. It's double. Uh, and that's why we're seeing the level of adoption and usage that we're seeing, because the solution has been developed with a very straight focus on solving the problem, and not with the intent only to sell.
Mm. So, so this, I mean, the past year has been really difficult for, among the many sectors the pandemic has had a massive impact on has been schools and education. And schools are still only partially open even now. One of the models of education that has received a big push has been the digital first model. Um, and we've seen a lot of education technology companies doing really well. There's a lot more visibility to it. There's a lot more acceptance of it, and parents are also very keen on taking those kinds of services on board. And obviously, with technology helping kids as well, it's becoming more and more easier for them to do that. Now, how has it affected Lead School, and how have you adapted to it?
I mean, look, I think I'm a little more of a realist to what is happening today. I think it is my sense is that uh, there is a bit of over exuberance currently, because if you think about it from first principles, children up to the age of 12, uh, they haven't developed the ability for metacognition. They are also not fully developed to be self-directed, so they need mediated learning. I mean, that's the reason why schooling exists. And this is different from higher education. I think higher education, there could still be a case made for some online learning, although, the campus experience can't be replicated. But in schools, the need is far deeper. If you think about it, a school actually fulfills three needs. It is daycare, it is socializing, and then it is knowledge transfer. And we tend to over emphasize the knowledge transfer part. But if you ask a parent, I mean, the reason why parents are tearing their hair apart today is because they're not used to handling their kids 24/7 for such a prolonged period of time. Now, we've become used to outsourcing our kids' development for 7-8 hours a day to someone who's a caring adult. That's why the schooling industry exists. So my sense is that what happened with demonetization, which is during the phase, there was a very high digital payment, and then it came down to a certain different normal. It wasn't the earlier level, but still a little higher, but off the peaks. The same is going to happen with online learning. Parents want their kids to go back to schools if the schools can develop confidence that they can run safely. And we are seeing 60-70% attendance rates in the classes that have opened in our own schools. So there is a pent up demand and desire by parents to get the kids off their back and back to school, because daycare is an important need. Socializing is such an important need. I mean, in India, unfortunately, we don't have data, but you'll be surprised at the number of children who are facing social emotional challenges, because of being cooped up at home, because kids are not used to be spending 24 hours with adults. They want to be with their age group, and that's an important part of schooling. So my sense is what the sustainable change that you will see is that schools will embrace technology, because they've been caught short with the COVID pandemic because they had not innovated enough. So the one transition you will see is that schools will quickly embrace technology. They will embrace innovation so that they are ready for future disruptions. Teachers will actually embrace more technology, leave the book behind, and embrace technology, because they have seen the power of being able to incorporate digital mechanism into their teaching. So when they go back to the physical classroom, they will incorporate some part of it. The third thing that I see is that in school we'll get more connected to at home, because now, since all the learning has been happening at home, there'll be some residual effects. Beyond that, I see only the top 10-15% socioeconomic segment to continue with online learning, because they have access to decent devices, which is the laptops. Phone is not a great device, and data. So they will continue because they will do school plus kind of stuff. But most of the country will go back to school.
Hmm. So, is there anything that Lead School is doing to, sort of position itself in a particular manner, or to, anything that sort of caters to this kind of a requirement?
I mean, actually, the reason why, even during the pandemic we have grown 2x. So last time I think when we spoke, it was 800 schools. Today we are at 1600 schools. The reason is that uh, fortunately we had always been designed as an integrated system which was tech based, because back in 2015 when we had developed this, uh, we saw it as the only way of scaling consistency. Otherwise, the train the trainer model, for example, which is prevalent in the country, has a lot of breakpoints, and the consistency of delivery I mean, it just drops precipitously as you go from the main source to the recipient. So we realized that without technology, you can't scale quality. So that's why during COVID, it has helped us, because schools, we were able to get all our schools online, even as schools are opening, and with the safety protocols, some students have to be at home, some students can come to school. So we have enabled hybrid mode of a school to run. As the schools will go fully back, we will enable the at home practice and homework. So we are, in that sense, a tech first school uh, solution company, where tech is not the end, but it's the mean to solve the schooling problem. And the current schooling problem is, how do you provide seamless, uninterrupted learning despite all these disruptions? and how do you ensure that the learning that is happening is still effective? And we've been able to do both of them. I mean, our results uh, have been in the middle year exams. We conducted the midterm exams despite all the disruptions. 72% mastery we were still able to deliver. Uh, and that's amazing because you must have read the Azim Premji report that online learning is not delivering outcomes. But I would say poor learning doesn't deliver outcomes, whether it is online or offline doesn't matter. So given that a lot of the online learning stuff was of poor quality, I'm not surprised. But if done the right way, it can. Although I would admit that our normal benchmark is 80-82, we were down to 72. So there is a bit of gap between online and physical. And that's therefore we are very keen to move back to physical enabled through tech.
And do you see anything in the NEP, the new education policy, enabling certain things that you would have wanted to do? I mean, clearly implementation will be the key, but even there, the diverse ways in which different state governments will implement it, and that will add to the differences in the outcome. And so, is there anything that you are, doing to take advantage of that, or positioning yourself in a certain manner?
Look, I mean, I think NEP is a catch-up document. I mean, if anyone has read deeply about pedagogy, curriculum, and what makes good learning happen, uh, this should have happened 20 years back. Now it has, because it is a catch-up document. It is still, I think, not as forward-looking as one would want, but it is, I would say, 70-80% there, which is not too bad, based because it's a consensus-based document. There are some things which still keep it back. I mean, the overemphasis on books I find very anachronistic because all our information gathering today as adults has gone beyond books. I mean, whether you look at radio or TV or internet or computer or mobile phone, we don't only rely on the physical newspaper, but we insist that students have to learn through the textbook, and that actually is ensuring that only about one third of the class learns. So I, I don't understand this over reliance on textbooks. I think that was a backward step. Uh, Apart from that, I guess the whole thing that they have added for the language bit, I don't think is very well thought through because in implementation it has massive challenges. Like how do you even determine the mother tongue of a child, and how do you determine the language of instruction in schools where students from 5 different cultures are coming? It's going to be very difficult to implement, right? And how do you then settle that with parental aspirations who want English medium learning? Uh, I think the good things are the fact that they are building flexibility after middle years. They are emphasizing holistic, assimilative, experiential learning in the younger years. Now, these are stuff which good curriculum companies like us and some others have already built, because this is supposed to be done. It's nothing fancy. I mean, it has to be done. Uh, so I would say to lift the lowest common denominator of the country up, it was a good document. But if the idea was to really be at the cutting edge of innovation, it falls short.
So, as it stands today, what would be your maybe top 2 to 3, recommendations to make it better, right? That we need to have, absolutely need to have in it.
I think one would have been we should have insisted on shifting from textbooks to learning paths. And I mean, learning path for me would be, I mean, if I look at, let's say in IIMA, we don't have textbooks, right? We have a topic or a learning outcome that we're wanting, and we do it through case studies. There is some reading material, but the reading material is a resource towards that learning. It's not the be all and end all. It's so the anchor of the learning has to be the learning path. In that learning path, there could be a book, there could be a video, there could be an activity, there could be some group work. Uh, but I think it was very important to shift the anchor, and we have lost an opportunity. And my sense is now we will lose another 5-10 years to being prisoners of the textbook. That's my biggest peeve. Uh, and I think the second one is, the regulatory additions that have happened in NEP. Currently we are overly regulated in schools, and I would have wanted a significant shift which says that ultimately you have to decentralize and push the decision making at the school versus controlling it at the state or at the central level. I mean, today we control at the state level which book the child will read for each subject. So you're basically dumbing down everyone to a lowest common denominator, right? And that just does not make sense. So I think these two steps, if we had implemented of decentralizing decision making on the resources on what a school or teacher can decide, and moving from books to learning paths would have been a big shift in shifting how teaching, learning, and pedagogy happens in the country.
Hmm. I mean, so what's next for Lead School in education, innovation, and delivery? I mean, how do you see the future? How are you creating the future for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, any school that partners with Lead School is on a learning path. I mean, we've been implementing this now for the last 4 years, and I mentioned the number of schools we work with. I think what we are wanting to ensure is that uh, ultimately, what Gandhiji said, the purpose of education is to build capable adults, responsible citizens, and good human beings. And the current education system is not even building capable adults, because we're just preparing for exams. So we need to take it step by step. We need to, in addition to preparing for exams, we need to prepare children for life. We need to ensure that they grow up into responsible citizens and become good human beings. Now, a lot of schools have this on their mission statement on their walls. The trick is, how do you implement this and how do you implement it in a systemic manner so that it can happen at scale? That's the problem we are trying to solve. So we have uh, a graduating student profile, that if a student graduates from a lead powered school, what would that student should look like, right? And then we work backwards to ensure that all the experiences of the child over the 13 years of her schooling build up to that graduating student profile. So that graduating student profile has mindsets and habits, it has knowledge and skills, and then it has uh, the higher level of specific mastery that a student wants to build based on their interest and proclivity. And I think our ambition is that if we are able to offer this kind of a learning path to each child in the country, then there is no reason why we can't explore the potential of this country, because a lot of their potential gets capped because of poor schooling by the age of 14 to 16. Uh, that's what we're building towards. All our curriculum, pedagogy, technology system is in this direction.
Sounds great. I'm sure we will hear a lot more about Lead School in the future. So, what do you do when you are, when you're off work, or what are the little things that you enjoy doing most when you're not working?
I mean, there's hardly any time that I'm not working, because I think for me, honestly, and this might sound like a cliche, work is not work. So if I'm reading, I'm typically reading about uh, typically two or three things. One is education, second is building organizations, and third is building self. So that's my reading, and it directly translates to my work. I'm either working or reading, or whatever time I think we've carved out now. During COVID, we've been very disciplined about carving out time for the family. I have two children, so when we have some bit of family time in the evening, an hour and a half, that's our life.
Well, Sumit, it's been great talking to you, and I want to wish you and Lead School all the best for the future, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about it. And congratulations on winning the award. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Anurag. Thanks for the honor, and thanks for spending time on this. And I mean, I must sign off by saying I'm eternally grateful to all the contributions that the institute has made in my life. I think, yeah, without that impetus, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Sumit. And I will reiterate our offer of wanting you back on campus sometime and having you speak to the students. So please do make time as and when it becomes convenient for you. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
And
Thanks, Anurag.
sure, talk to you
All right.
again soon.
Yeah.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
So yeah, we'll end the interview here now. So we can just leave, or you can just just chat for a bit. But thank you, Sumit, for doing this. And this is part of a regular thing that we've been doing for the past few years.
Okay.
I think for the first year we didn't have that, but since then we've been having this, so that we want to document it and have your thoughts and views put up on their on our IIMA YouTube channel, and have everybody listen to it. And that's been a very positive thing, because a lot of people listen to that and they say that, those are the, those are very, very illuminating things. I never thought of it in that way, or I connect with that, much more, deeply. So a lot of alums and even people outside, they tell us that, these are the things that we connect with most, and it was so that's why we've thought that this has to be something that that should be shared. And a lot of people would obviously look up to you and want to hear from you again. But this stays there as, as a repository of the knowledge that you've shared for posterity at least.
No, this is great. I
So
mean, I must commend you for the diligence. I mean, I think first the event itself took some time, and I'm sure you were waiting for any clues for the institute to open, because there is nothing to compare with being with physically being there. But I think after the event, to just ensure that all the things are done is commendable. Yeah. So great. I mean, I'm glad that
no,
we have
but
been.
what you said is actually interesting, because we are actually busier than pre-COVID times.
I'm sure.
So, because a lot of these events that we do, a lot of it happens on the weekend, right?
Right.
So so our week has extended from Friday to Sunday, so there's no break days in between, in a sense. So we're actually busier, but that's in a good way, of course.
I mean,
So
welcome
we
to
do.
our world. We don't have weekends.
Yes. Good, good. No,
All
I
right. This
connect.
was
I connect with you in a much more personal level as well, because I have an NGO of my own which is
okay.
entirely into education. So we've been doing that for the past 23 years.
Wonderful. What do you
And
do?
before I took on this role, I so my we have an NGO which is into education. What we do is we provide education to the underprivileged kids. So that is primarily our entire base is underprivileged kids, and we provide them scholarships for engineering and medicine. And then we've also for the past few years, about 7 8 years now, we've started teaching students who are preparing for civil services exams.
Okay.
So I was teaching them for the past 3 4 years before I for the civil services students before I took on this role. And before that, I was working with the government on police modernization and crime and criminal tracking network systems. Before that, I was a treasury head for a company, and before that, I was in the US. I did
Okay.
my double masters in the US, and my whole reason for coming back to India was, giving back to society and building nation building. That was the whole goal why I came back. None of my other batchmates came back, so I was a bit idealist in that manner. But I connect with you because we've been doing that for a very long time. Our base is completely the really poor kids, and we're happy that most of our students now are in all the major IT companies and even in civil services and elsewhere. So it's
That's wonderful. Yeah. We've been trying to work with the government, but without success. And honestly, I mean, I don't think I put dedicated effort there because there's so much to do here. But if we ever get a chance to work with the government, I think there is so much to be done there, because half the country still goes to government schools and the outcomes there are really poor.
yeah,
Uh, so if ever we are able to do that, and if an opportunity comes in your way, do let us know. We will be happy to do something there.
I will. I will. Great talking to you,
Great
Sumeet,
talking to
and
you. You have a good
thank you
evening.
again. You
Yeah.
too.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Take care.
Bye.